Recording in progress.
Of course, as soon as I hit that button, I'm like, shoot, I don't know what day I'm on. I think I'm on day 8. I think we're on day 8. I usually try
Yeah.
to keep track of that. So welcome everybody. Am I to day 8, Erin? Am I right? All right, good. Welcome everybody to day 8 of the 12 days of Christmas. We are already off the chain. I'm so excited. I'm excited about every night. I just can't help it. And that's just the way it is. That's why I do this. So I hope everybody's enjoying things thus far. I, of course, am going to start with some of our housekeeping things, as we always do, because I do think that we have more and more new people joining us, especially on the recordings, which I'm so glad to see that people are taking the time to follow up if they can't be with us live. So just a big thank you to everybody for embracing my silly little project, as I call it. We're now in the 3rd year, and it's really just kind of gaining momentum, and I love it. And I do find, though, as I get on from day 1 to day 8, I kind of lose track of what I've said, what I haven't said. I don't know. It just kind of gets crazier and crazier. It was a bit crazy around here just minutes before going on board. So that is life on a farm, as you always know. So without further ado, let me remind you guys of a couple of things before we dive into tonight's content, of which I am so excited because I do try. Now, last night we talked a little bit about some new yarn. But this is really our yarn job, and I try to do one for every 12 days of Christmas, and as you know, it's always limited. So I hope you guys are excited. Get those fingers ready, because I don't have to take this to Vogue. You guys are getting a peek on everything. So don't forget, you still have time to take advantage of our 50% off skincare code. That is TDOC
Do not want that.
2450. So you've got 50% off all of our skincare, excluding loofahs and our kits. I do thank you. The orders are coming in, of course. And remember that part of placing orders throughout the 12 days of Christmas is also what gets you in for this keepsake basket, which we're going to go over quickly so that we can show you what Shanna has been so nice to donate to it. Now, in addition, of course, remember tonight you have to be in it to win it, so you have to stay till the end. And then I'm going to ask Shanna to pick a number based on how many participants I see are with us. And then we will select somebody that is going to get a $20 store credit to shop with us here at Life. And that's something that we'll put into your account, and it can be there for whenever you choose to use it after we are done with the 12 days of Christmas. Then also don't forget that we've got the after party. So the after party, I'm already still in New Year's mode. We have the wrap up party, no after party. So we have the wrap up party, and that is on the 6th. So while all of our guests are invited to join us again, we will have hopefully some in-person people, as well as all of you on Zoom that just can't find the way to drive here to Long Island. And we're just going to have a lot of fun. We're going to recap all of our guests, and for every guest, there's going to be a trivia question. And whoever gets that question correct in the chat first, we have tangible gifts that we'll be mailing out to you guys. And then, of course, we're also going to do the big drawing for the keepsake basket. So to be honest, I was just thinking about this today. I'm not really sure if I should cut off the tickets as of Sunday night, but Jill's going to be in the office on Monday. So as far as I'm concerned, you guys have until Monday, 4 p.m. to be able to make your purchases, which gets your tickets in for the drawing, so that then we can be all set for the wrap-up party. So if you are new to us, what is the keepsake basket? So it's an idea that I had because I have so many amazing gifts, all of which are makers or involved in animals. And really, for the most part, somebody always has something to be able to contribute, so that one lucky person will win this basket that has just a little bit of something from everybody to remind you of the 12 days of Christmas. Now, that's not to say if you see something in the keepsake basket that you like, the whole purpose, guys, for this platform is to be introducing you to new people or even if it's people that you're familiar with, giving you a chance to get to know them just a little bit better, maybe a little bit more intimately, just finding out fun and interesting things, because we never know where this is going to go. So thus far, if I can remember running it down in order, or maybe not in order, Kimberly, of course, kicked off the 12 Days of Christmas with me, and she donated one of her workshops free. We have a code for that, so there'll be a little coupon. Kevin and Ray generously donated 2 skeins of yarn that they dyed, along with 2 enamel pins. We then also have merch from Allie, Grateful Acres. We've got a sweatshirt, also from my friends Jean and Bob Ford with the Newfoundland Pony Conservancy. We've got a sweatshirt and honestly a really cool drawstring backpack, super sturdy canvas material. Like, I want to make them for myself. I'm definitely going to be finding out where they got those from. Then, of course, we had Ashley from involved with the Girl Scouts. That was a big hit because you get 4 Girl Scout box of cookies of your choice. That's been a big topic of conversation, and apparently almost the most coveted prize, aside from, yarn, who knows, but definitely a big hit. So 4 boxes of your choice of Girl Scout cookies. Then last night, Mary Dean Parker was with us from Battenkill Fibers. She donated 2 skeins of yarn that are all locally sourced from New York, of course, milled at her mill in New York. So definitely something unique that you've probably not had before. And then we are going to add this beautiful, deep, rich skein of yarn from Shanna. So this is her Tra-la-la sock yarn, and it is a one-of-a-kind. So those are always the fun things. I'm sure she'll talk about that. So remember that. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, because as a dyer, there's probably experimentation or beautiful mishaps, perhaps. This wasn't even the green yarn that I was talking about, Elizabeth Benson. And I'm not really sure if this is the name, because it's interesting. It says Petroleum Lot Number 2.
Yeah, too.
So we'll definitely have to talk a little bit more about that. Also, what I want to tell you is that a lot of her shades have really deep, deep tones and nuances to them that are hard to pick up in many ways until you're looking at it in person. So looking at this under the light, even though it appears to be like just a really like deep emerald green, I mean, there's deep blue tones. There's even kind of some like more chartreuse tones. So there's definitely a lot of depth to this yarn, aside from maybe just what you see here. Absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for this donation to the basket. And so we're going to add that in. So remember, guys, the keepsake basket, how you get in, and you do not have to be part of the wrap-up party to win it. But for every $10 that you have spent this week, then 1 ticket goes in for the keepsake basket. Couple of things I want to remind you guys of. Now, our Crafting with Cotswold class is now closed. If you did not get in on it, but you're interested, please let us know. Kimberly and I are definitely thinking that we're going to do another one that we will be advertising when we are at Vogue Knitting Live New York, mid-January. In addition, we've got the lecture series with Linda Courtwright from Wild Fibers. Many of you jumped in on that. So that's 3 tickets right there. And of course, that's 4 lectures that are going to be 1 each month, starting next week, I think. So we're really excited about that. In addition, so many of you have jumped in already on our soft launch for the 4th annual Life and Rainbows Knit Along. Honestly, I've already lost count. So just a big thank you. I actually had to call Kimberly today. I was like, girl, I'm like, you will not believe, I'm like so excited. So she's thrilled. She thanks everybody. Now, what I do want to let people know, because Erin, my dear moderator, said probably people are going to be asking, remember, guys, this is a soft launch. What that means is I showed you the inspiration. I don't have it in view today, but we showed you the inspiration of the Colorwork sweater. We said it's going to be a sweater or a cowl. It is going to be utilizing sport weight yarn, but that is all we have for you right now. So if you know us, you love us, if you've done our knit-alongs before, or even if you haven't and you just want to jump on board, remember they're workshops. This is a tutorial. It is something you do at your own pace. But once you buy in on it, you get the videos, the tutorials, the private face group, all of that forever in perpetuity. So while I know some people are anxious, we will have all of the details finalized by the time we get to Vogue Knitting Live, which is really just in a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks perhaps. So hang tight for me. By then, we will have all the details, and that still gives you guys more than a month to be able to get the materials that you need, even if you so choose not to get them from me. So hang tight. I'm glad you guys are excited. I have gotten a couple of questions and emails about that, so I wanted to make sure I got that out there for anybody with us live or anybody who's watching the recordings. So hopefully that helps. But remember, if you do decide to get on the soft launch, that's 7 tickets right there too for something that you might be doing anyway. So it's going to be a pretty heavily stacked keepsake basket this year. But remember, you just need one. You just need one ticket to be able to potentially win. So I'm going to be excited about all of this. There is some, Amy, I see your chat there. There is some yarn available as of right now. So I will just say this, guys. So actually the yarn that I'm wearing here right now in my classic Hampton wrap, we have a yarn called Jasper that is very, very similar to this, except it is a wool blend, alpaca wool blend. We also have another one called Obsidian. So those are 2 natural colors that we have. And then of course, I mean, the thought is going to be for a small size, you're probably looking at about 6 skeins, maybe looking at 4 for the base, 2 for the color, but do not quote me on it. I have had some people purchase things ahead of time just because, you know, they're interested in getting it anyway. But again, when I talk to you about what I'm doing with Mary Jean Packer, because the original sweater was done in wool, remember it was done by Christopher's grandmother. So I specifically wanted to do some grassroots wool yarn. I've got some really beautiful stuff that I'm excited about, stuff that's all shorn by me. Some of it's going to be dyed, some of it's going to be natural. So we've got lots of choices that are going to be coming back. But again, remember, you also do not have to get yarn from me. Maybe you have stash or support somebody else. So lots of opportunities, but you're going to have to hang in there for that. So, oh, also I would say too, specifically, remember last night we talked about the Romney Merino blend in the natural gray. This is also something that I have quantity of that could also be a beautiful base or a beautiful contrast if you wanted to go with something more natural. So for those of you that are new to me, a lot of times my stuff is very small based. So if I tell you it's limited, it's limited. It's not a sales pitch. So as of right now, Jasper, Obsidian, and then this Merino Romney blend I have in quantity. Now, when I say quantity, that's maybe like 50, 60 skeins. That's my quantity. Otherwise, a lot of what we do is very small, which makes it very fun. And that is so the case with the drop that we're doing tonight as well. So with that, I want to move on. And then, of course, we're just going to ping and pang and bounce back and forth. But I do want to get into it with our guest for this evening. As I told Shanna ahead of time behind the scenes, of course, I want to dive into a little bit of who is Shanna and her aesthetic and where this all came from and the business and what she did, because that's the beautiful thing. Even though I know Shanna in a way, and we've also done a previous collaboration together, and we always say hello and hug each other at the different shows that we see each other at, I still couldn't really tell you that I know a lot about her. So that's why I love these things. So I mean, it's like I can be like, yeah, I totally know her, but I don't know a lot about her, so I am always equally excited. And then on the other hand, aside from getting to know Shanna and a bit more about her dyeing journey, not dyeing, your yarn dyeing journey, then we also...
my journey, my long journey.
We also want to make sure that we talk about this beautiful yarn that I have here for you guys to be able to learn about. And of course, I'm excited to know about her inspiration and her process for what she did for me. So without further ado, this is the way I always start. If you are at a party and somebody's like, hi, what's your name? And what do you do? Or what do you want me to know about you? Like, what do you say?
Party?
Okay. All right. So maybe, all right. So maybe if you're at a social gathering, a business
I'm
gathering.
online at the food store and somebody was asking me a question. I would say, I'm Shanna and I dye yarn for a living. I own a small business where I dye small batch, very small batch, um, moody, dark inspired yarns. And I am a knitter and I love what I do.
So where did it, I mean, really, because I have no idea. So, of course, you used to live on Long Island.
I
So that's
did.
where I feel like I would see you a lot more at different, knitting events and things like that. But I guess really what I'm totally curious about is like, where did it all start in terms of, what did you used to do? Did you always do this? Like, did you have a previous
I
career? Like, what
didn't.
made you decide
Um,
to turn this into your business versus the hobby?
well, I feel like really it's kind of like a lot of other people who get into the dyeing business. I went to school for fine art. Um, I got my associate's degree and then I got my bachelor's degree and then I got my master's and
Wow.
the
Where did you
long
go?
term I
Wait, where,
I'm so Long Island. I went to Suffolk Community College and then I went to Post because
okay.
I'm so Long Island.
I didn't know that
Uh,
they had those kind of degrees, so that's why I was wondering,
yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of fine art.
So I did fine arts for, I mean, the degree took me forever to get, but I was the I was the teaching assistant for the director of the department. The long-term plan was that I was going to start teaching classes as an adjunct and then hopefully it would just springboard from there. And unfortunately, that didn't happen right out the gate. And I kind of just had
Wait, I'm
to like
curious,
figure it
going
out.
into fine art. So what did you like what inspired you at that point? Like what aspect of fine arts did you have like a specialty is the wrong word,
I
but
did.
like, what was your
Yeah,
focus?
like a concentration
Yes, thank
in yeah, painting.
you. Okay.
I did a lot of like pop surrealism and stuff like that. And I did realism for like my bachelor's degree. I did a realism and then I started doing pop surrealism and more surreal, a little bit more like conceptual kind of ideas and paintings and stuff like that. And um when you go to school for art or when you go to school for fine art, especially in the visual arts, um, they want you to have these like intentions and these ideas and they want you to have these things that you want to say, and when you're 20, you don't, it's hard. Like you don't really have that much to say, right? I mean, I didn't have that much to say, right? I just really loved what I did, and I thought like those things would snowball, and my painting would become more refined, and it would be like I was gonna figure it out, like you're kind of just figuring it out. Um, so it was hard, like really. When I look back at the paintings that I did or the ideas that I had, I'm like, oh my God, that's so like a 20-year-old. Those are like so the ideas of a 20-year-old person, but you know, I really loved it. And I had been painting and drawing since I was a kid. I had a lot of support from my family. They thought that
Which
I
is
was so
great
talented and
because
all this stuff. It was
I mean,
fantastic.
yeah, because I would imagine that there's a lot of people, I don't want to say back then, but meaning regardless, I think like
Yeah.
people were probably like, oh, I love art or I love painting. And, I'm sure it's easier now, I feel like, but that's amazing that they were so
Yeah.
supportive of you following your dreams.
They were. And like the joke when you go to art school is that like it's like okay, it's like the joke is that it's a useless degree. Not that I'm, like putting that on it, but like that's the joke. And like as I went through school and as I was learning more like during my master's, it became sort of clear that like you're coming up with your own job. Like you're not going to leave school and be this famous painter and like be in the scene and like be a professional in the scene. It doesn't work like that. So like you kind of just have to find your own way, or find your own way to do what you like to do, would do what you love to do, and continue to express what you do want to express. And yeah, like I graduated, and I thought I was going to be a part of the
So you
faculty,
went
which
all the way through your master's, you said?
I did. I did. And I loved it. Don't get me wrong. Like I loved it, but it wasn't like at the end it wasn't this big like next step that I was going to take in the art world. And you're taught, like, you're learning problem solving skills. That's what the arts are. Um it's why they're so important in schools, and like I can talk about that for yeah, I could talk about that for a long time. Like I feel like I could be an advocate for like the arts in school and stuff. Like it's always the first program to get cut, but it really has the biggest impact on young minds, and like learning how to problem solve. That's really just what painting and drawing and sculpture and all these, it's those honing in those skills. And at the end, it was really much more about like appreciating that part of it. And now how do I problem solve like the next step? Right. So in the meantime, I had been working at AC Moore. Remember AC Moore?
Yes.
I was
Absolutely.
there, and like I thought this is just like a springboard, like not a springboard, but like this is something that like makes me a little bit of money, and it's whatever. I can still do what I love to do, and I can still
And you're
sort of
still
be in the
surrounded
scene
by all the things that make you happy.
for a little while, sure, until you get to work. But um I knew about the products that we sold, and I loved talking about the products that we sold, and um it it it, it made it easier to be there, and really kind of like I love the customers, um but I really wasn't doing that much painting at that time. But I was bouncing around in departments, every you know how retail works, like every few months they bounce you around. As soon as you get comfortable with something, they're like, sorry, we're going to put you over there. So I wound up in the art department, and I don't know, it kind of just went from there. I kind of was like,
Wait,
I
you were
should.
not, so you were not knitting before this?
Not really. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
really wasn't. I started knitting like toward like the end of my master's degree,
Okay.
because I was working at the store, and I'd been working there for years. So I bought a couple of skeins of yarn. I thought like I can make Christmas presents for people. I can do like scarves, right? But in by knitting needles. So I was knitting like with the back of my paintbrushes, which I like a thick one and a thin one. Like I was just like, this is fine. Like this is the stitch, like
That's
or whatever. Like
so cool.
so so I made a couple scarves and then I got transferred to the yarn department because they were needing somebody over there, and I thought like I knit two scarves, like that's the whole thing. Like I could talk about this now. And I really just kind of like learned more about the yarn. I mean, it was Red Heart, it was a lot of like Karen and Simply Soft, but right in tucked in the corner they had Patents, which was like the
Yeah, yeah,
Patents
yeah.
100% wool.
Yes,
And
yes.
it was like, right, totally different. I bought the wool. I was like, you could block this. It smells nice. It feels good. Like it just opened up a whole new like yarn world to me, right?
Yeah.
So, and like Patents has some nice colors, but they didn't have the colors that I really wanted. So I bought a ton of their like bare color, like the Aran colorway, the undyed one,
Yeah.
because I had a fantastic discount. And I brought it all home, and I bought like Kool-Aid. I bought like all this stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna make the purple that I want, or I'm gonna make this whatever color that I want. Um, and I really, that's just how I just started to keep doing it, and I was making stuff I didn't like, and there were a couple of things I made that I really liked, and then I was like, maybe I should buy like a basic set of yarn dyes, right? Like I bought like the primary colors and like a pink. You could buy like the first six, and that was it. That was it. I just dyed so much yarn. And at that time, we were living in a basement apartment that was like 450 square feet. Like it's nothing. So I was accumulating all of this stuff. And then the kitchen kind of got to be like the studio, and my fiance finally was like, you have to get rid of this. Like, we can't keep housing all of this crap that you're making. Like, you're just making it. It wasn't even really like I was using all of it. I
Okay.
was just
Yeah,
like
well, yeah, how could you?
making it. Yeah. And like, I think what really got me interested in dyeing the yarn, what was so fascinating in the beginning and still really now is that like it was different than paint. Like it just color theory went out the window. Dye and the way that it's pre-mixed and what you can do with it, it's not like paint. It was relearning color theory. It was relearning how to mix with this different medium, right? It was like a different medium, and I really loved that about it,
So without
and then,
putting a quantitative value on like how old you are now versus when you started. I mean, I'm just
Good.
looking. So I know we're not
I
asking
mean,
that
I'm
question.
20, obviously. Obviously. Yeah.
Okay, well,
I
the
mean,
good news is you look fabulous, however old
yeah,
you are. But so, like, how many years are we talking? Just meaning, from when you started to where we are now, like, because I really have no idea. Are we talking 10 years, 15 years? Like, I don't know.
like 10, 11 years maybe. Yeah, something like that.
So, somewhere along in your journey, while the beginning was very experimental, did you ever? I'm just curious because honestly, I don't even know somebody who is getting involved in dyeing yarn. I mean, I think to the best of my ability, I've never seen like a structured workshop on it.
Right.
Are there resources? Do people just talk to each other? Like, is there really a collective place where somebody who wants to learn how to dye can find that information? Because I feel like there's not.
There's more now than there was then.
Right.
Like then, and the internet is so different. Even now from like 10 years ago, like even being able to find something very specific or some very specific information is so much easier now. I mean, it's crazy to me. Like all you do is like you ask a question on Reddit and then it just
Right.
like but
Well,
back
and now
then,
AI and all of that. And I want to just interject because I think it's a great question. So somebody was asking back, I don't want to say back when you were in school, but back when you were
oh,
in school,
those were the
was
days.
was fiber arts at all part of the curriculum?
No, it really
Now,
wasn't. And
okay.
no, because it's considered a craft.
Well, I think though, I mean, and I don't know, it would be interesting, but I mean, I know I've done work with Parsons students and I've done work with
Yes,
FIT students, but that's fashion. So I
that's fashion.
wonder, and do those ever cross, right? Because when you said that you went to school for fine arts, I feel bad that that was immediately where I thought. I was like, oh, maybe she went to FIT or Parsons. So
Yeah,
the difference, meaning in terms of like what you did versus because I know they have fiber arts as part of theirs, and maybe that's more of just now versus back then too.
I wish that I had the kind of relationship with my professors from 15 years ago that I could ask what the outlook is now. Is the outlook from that community
Hmm.
different now than it was? Because when I was doing my bachelor's degree and I did my bachelor's degree in painting and I did like realism, right? Well, I thought it was great. I see realism now and I'm like, but I was doing realism and I was fascinated with like at that time parasites and like entomology and like for a brief time I wanted to illustrate for science books. Like there was like a little thing that was going on in there. And
I just have to tell you, I'm not laughing at you.
you know,
My big smiles are because I can't see Elizabeth Benson's face on the top of my screen, but I know she's like freaking out at this moment because so we have one of our big lifers who actually studies algae. And like the intricacies of that, of which I've learned just through talking to her. What?
Actually, I there it's like I'm gonna get like let me just do like a little sidetrack also.
Yeah, yeah.
My cousin was at my mother's house for Christmas and we did like a Zoom because I wasn't able to go home this year. And she was saying that she works with somebody who knows you. And she was like, do you know Tabitha? And I said, I do know Tabitha. Why do you know Tabitha? She's not from here. She's like she's from Cornwall, New York, but she's living on the island right now and she just got a job with a non-for-profit something that I'm gonna butcher. Where they're working with like marine life and they like study marine life and she's doing like she's studying sea turtles or something. It's like a non-profit. She was telling me all about it, and of course it was Christmas, so I was like, I have had some drinks, but like, yeah, I'm sort of absorbing what you're telling me. But I thought
How
that
did
was so
I get
interesting.
into marine life and sea turtles?
We were talking about the programs that like you teach that she
Okay.
somehow crosses your path in
It's
like
amazing, right?
in
And
the
you would
yeah
think, like, I mean, again, once, regardless, right? I mean, once you start going into certain sectors of things, it
yeah
really is crazy, like how many people know each other in different ways, or look, regardless, I'm glad I have like that much of a spread, in
you do
which
of
I'm
course you do.
touching into
I know
different areas. And I
it's
have
so
to tell you, Elizabeth said she was immediately freaking out as soon as you mentioned insects.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, the my book of choice at that time, and I was reading like Parasite Rex and like Wicked Bugs and stuff like all I was so fascinated, but it was also right around the time where I was learning to knit and I was I don't even remember what my thesis was. It was like parasitic behavior and how it relates to like people and like what makes a person like a parasite. Like it was very like nuanced and like it was very like a 20-year-old's perspective. So but I was doing a lot of reading on that and then I started incorporating some like embroidery floss and some of the yarn into the canvas. I was starting to like I would do a realistic painting and then I would like embroider on the canvas and it was really a hard sell for my professors. They were like, why? Like yarn, like why? It's
Oh, it's
the
a shame.
perspective at that time or the perspective from that faculty, right? I don't even want to say at that time because I don't know, but the perspective and the experience that I had with that faculty at that time was that like you're just kind of, I don't want to use the word that is going to insult because I don't agree, but it kind of like was not, it was a craft. They were like, that's a craft. Why would you do this 4 by 5 foot realistic painting and then add like acrylic yarn to it, or wool? Like, what's the point? But it made sense to me, but it really was a very hard sell. And like, I wasn't even really knitting. It was just adding it in general. They were like,
I am so
you're
sorry for
making it a
that.
craft.
And do you have any, like, I mean, not for this program, but like, did you like maintain these things? Do you have pictures? Do you still have them? Like, what
So I
happened to
have
stuff like
pictures
that?
and they're awful pictures, but I do have pictures from like my point and shoot like little Canon camera from like 2007 like yes. So I do have those pictures, but and I should probably post them. I should like take new pictures because I do have some of them downstairs. I should like
You should, because honestly, I gotta tell you, and I'm not just like, look, I don't say anything I don't mean, and anyone who knows me knows that's true. Like, I just think it sounds so cool. And the thing is it also sounds so progressive for, again, I don't want to say the time, but
well, but
like
yeah,
how
it's so
interesting
crazy
to
that like
combine.
2007 was a long time ago. Like, ugh, but it really was a long time ago.
But
Ugh.
it really, like, I feel so not sorry for you, but I'm sad for you that something so cool, progressive, or at least we all think it's cool.
I thought it was
So,
great.
I hate to think that passions get dampered when
And
other people can't understand it, right?
and I think like I don't want to give the impression that that's what art school was like, right? But
No,
I
no,
feel
no,
like
no.
but that's kind of, you know,
Oh, think about
you want
you.
to do what you want to do, and they're like,
Huh.
their goal is to guide you. Um,
I don't know. Personally, I
I
think
liked
the
what I was
goal is
doing,
supposed to be to inspire you. What are they guiding you on? It's your thoughts, right? It's your
right?
thoughts, it's your impressions, it's your ideas, it's your creativity. So they should be inspiring. So,
And
regardless, I know you're
at
being politically correct, but think about
yeah,
it, right?
but really, like, and now I look now, I'm like, I should have just done whatever I wanted. But like, it was very, I'm not 20 anymore. 20 is like, okay, I just got to get this degree and get myself out there and be a famous artist. Like, done a couple years and that's just going to be my life. And now, you get older and you're like, I should have just done whatever I wanted. Like, why?
Yeah.
But I did like what I was doing. And because I did that, I started really playing more with yarn and fibers and like what can I do with them and how can I incorporate them into at least my leisurely life, right? Like I started I would go to the studio and I would paint for hours and I would get there early and I would teach a 4 hour class because my professor didn't want to get there early because he was retiring, so he didn't care. And I was doing all of this, like, it was like 14-hour days. And then I would go home and I would want to knit or I would want to like crochet something substantial, right? It became like what I do for fun when it used to be painting,
Yeah.
and now I'm doing that for fun. And that's not to say that I don't love to paint, but
Things shift.
it shifted. And it was also really around the time when my fiance was going to school. He wanted to be an electrical engineer. He was doing really, really great. And then he hit like a level of classes that just were rough for him. And on off hours, he was playing guitar and he was learning music and he was just doing all these like, it was this creative outlet. And I said to him, it doesn't seem like this electrical engineering is your passion, right? Like it was for a little while and then he hit like a roadblock on it and then it just became something it was just something he had to do. The passion was gone. And I was like, you should really do something with music. Like if you can get your family to back you, because again, we were young, like if you can get your family support, like you should do something more with music. And then he did, and now he's a music teacher. So it was right around that time where I was trying to support him and realizing that like what I'm doing to relax and what I'm doing for leisurely activity, I could do that, like I could make that more part of my life. And then yeah, and then I started doing sculptural work with it, which was like I did a lot of like needle felting. I started doing needle felting. I started like really wanting like high quality wool. It just like, it starts to snowball. It's like anybody who really gets into it knows how that snowballs. You're just, like every time you turn around, you're like, wow, look
Snowball,
at
the
that.
rabbit hole, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and then again, like with the dyeing and all this stuff and like it just felt like a new way to paint. Like it just felt like I was learning to paint again or something. And that was so needed at that time after you do all of that master's work and you're being guided and you're kind of, I don't want to use the word stifled, but like it kind of was like you get a little stifled, and like, yeah, it opened up a new a way for me to enjoy working with color and
Now, I feel like
expressing
I want to
what I
jump
want.
ahead. Like, I want to jump ahead, but I don't. But at the same time, this is the one thing I'm curious about. And somebody else was asking natural dyeing, which I don't think you delve into that. Do you or no?
So, so now that we live upstate, I have this giant black walnut tree in the back that like is killing everything around it. Because there's like a chemical in walnuts that you can't grow anything. And we have like a squirrel condo right in the shed. So we have a ton of walnuts, and they always seem to be wrangled by the squirrels, which I much appreciate. And I did try to do some natural dyeing with that this year, and it was
Okay,
okay.
all
But
right. So
I would
otherwise, you use acid dyes, right? Is that
otherwise I use acid dyes. Yeah,
but so I'm curious, and so I don't know a lot about it, and I would love for you to explain the difference
yeah,
if
double.
you, which I'm sure you know the difference, with your painting background. You're not painting your yarns, though, are you?
No, it's
So
more like
explain, I was gonna say, so explain for maybe somebody who doesn't know the difference between like the dyeing and then there is painting yarn.
right. Well, there's yeah, so there is like doing like you can get sock blanks. I've seen like a lot of that, and you can paint on the sock blanks, and then you take the sock blank apart and then you use it to make whatever. Um, Mine's more like I really enjoy the glazing of it, how the colors mix, how they react with one another. Like when I was painting, I did a lot of glazing with my paints. That's just how I liked to do it. Like I would put a color there and then I would maybe glaze like a translucent over that and then a translucent over that, and it creates this like depth. It creates these colors. Like if you put yellow and you put green on top of it on paint, you're going to get green and yellow, and then you're going to get this nice like olive in the middle, right? If you're using the right colors. And dyeing yarn is similar to that. So I know like with some of the ones that I had sent you, I did like a tan base, and then I would put like a teal over it, or and
So
then
wait,
like
wait, I
maybe
have to
one.
stop. So for people who don't know, but and it's so common to you,
I know.
so that's okay. No, but so paint the picture, meaning what I guess I'm asking is I've learned how
Absolutely.
some people are dyeing in a pot, right? That's
Yes.
on a stove, but then also there are people that are dyeing in sheet pans.
Right. So I do both.
Okay, what's the difference?
Um,
Why would you do one over
so
the
when you're immersing yarn, um, you really like I tend to get more of an even color. Right. So if I put like two skeins of yarn in a pot and I throw black in there, I know that they're both going to be gray, all the way through. Or I can twist the yarn in a certain way and put it in the pot. And there's yarn that's on the inside that doesn't take the dye, but the outside takes the dye. So when I pull it out, it's kind of like tonal, right? I can get like dark here and then it gets light here. And then I twist it again, I put it in another color. And now that color is taking some of the undyed yarn and some of the dyed yarn. So I'm trying to,
well, and hopefully, and I don't know if you know, but I think between the yarns that you've done for me, there appears to be two different processes
yes,
here. Well, so
yes,
I mean that also could be a great, you know, way to talk about, the differences. Also,
right.
if you're cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I can do like a glazing. Like I don't know, the lighting is so bad. It's hard to see that there's like a few different colors in here.
No, you can
It's
see the shades for sure.
yeah. So this is like a four. This one is just immersion. Whoops.
When
Um,
you say immersion, is that in a pot?
in a pot. Yeah, like
Okay.
immersing the yarn.
Okay.
So I'll do like a yellow, and then I take it out, twist it, put it back in, maybe with a brown, take it out, put it back in with a green. And it
Okay.
kind of like you see there's some of those colors, but then when they layer.
Right.
So there are some spots in here that have colors that I didn't use, but it's because
The
I'm
two
putting,
colors. Yeah.
yeah, and now it's giving you this other thing. So there's that. There's also I usually immersion. I usually immerse at least one time because it's a nice even, I can get a nice even like base.
Okay.
Then maybe I'll take it out and I'll put it in a pan and then I can control where I put the dye, exactly
If
where I
it's
want
in
to
the
put the
sheet
dye
pan.
in the sheet pan.
Yeah. Okay.
So, or if I take it out and I'm like, there's not enough of that color in there, I can kind of like squeeze it in. I liked having that kind of control,
Hmm.
and I think you get a lot of layers and you get a lot of complicated colors when you do something like that. You can also really screw it up and make mud. That's happened too, where you're like, I need more of this. And you put it in, you're like, no, no, nope,
I didn't
don't
need
need
more of
that.
that at all.
That's, mark that down. And I do, I keep track of everything I do,
Well,
every step.
I was just going to ask that. So,
Yeah.
do you do both? Meaning, do you create colorways that are duplicable, or do you just roll with it, or do you do both?
I like a control. I wish I could just roll with it, but everything I do, I write down.
Okay.
So if I like something, I'll circle it and maybe I'll use it for a real recipe. And
Okay.
sometimes if I don't like it, I make a big, ugly, like 5-year-old scribble on it. And I'm like, no, don't do that again. Like that did not work.
Okay.
Don't do that again. But for the most part, I write almost everything down. I just need to know. And then I buy a new dye and I'm like, oh, I get to do it all over again.
Uh-huh.
Like it's fun. It's
Do
really
you buy
fun.
your dyes from the same company? Do you get dyes from different companies? Like,
I
again,
get dyes from different companies. So, like Dharma Trading Company has a lot of dyes. They also do like a lot of um like clothing and stuff like that. You can get silk from them. You can get like they're like a fiber related like umbrella company. So I get a lot of my dyes from them. Prochem is another one. I really like a nice saturated acid wash fast
mhm.
dye. Yeah. So,
Now, in terms of, and I don't want, so the other thing that we learned just by even earlier, I had Kevin and Ray from Needles at the Ready podcast on. And of course, Ray talking about his dabbling and dyeing and all of that. But it was interesting because he had mentioned that everything that they work with exclusively is superwash and then has very little experience, which is fine, but a
yeah.
little more unsure in terms of like working with what I deal with in terms of natural fibers. So I do understand that many indie dyers kind of get all of their base yarns from very similar places. And
Yeah. It's like the same
and
two places.
but so I have two things because I want to get to where you've created your aesthetic, but at the same time, what have you found is the difference? I mean, I know that you've dyed for me before. Obviously, I'm not dealing with a superwash base. So do you dabble in both, or
Yeah.
did you just okay? Because I was gonna say, did you just be like, hey, we'll just see what happens, or
Well, I mean, in the beginning, when I was really like just starting the business, right? I was getting it from the same place that everybody gets their superwash yarn. Um, and it's all superwash. I mean, like they had some non-superwash, but I was really like kind of afraid of it. Because I do a lot of immersing, right? So I mean, we have thermometers, we can see how hot the water gets and everything, but like not all wool is created equal, and you can easily ruin a non-superwash. You can easily like fry that fiber and
well,
it
that's what
scares.
I was gonna ask because I was like, what
Yeah.
do you mean by ruin it? Because color wise, look, we all have like beautiful mistakes, but you're saying literally you can fry it.
You can like fry it in the water. I mean, it's no different than washing your wool sweater and throwing it in the dryer and being like, why did I do that? Right? Totally changes the texture of the yarn and like how it drapes on you and stuff. So like an alpaca, again, like literally a different animal, right? It's so different. They just behave so differently in the water and like they respond so differently to heat. So in the beginning, it was a lot of superwash because I could just kind of not have to worry about that. I can hone in on what I wanted to do and the colors that I wanted, and it was really hard to ruin it, you
Mhm.
know? Um, but then, your business evolves, your taste evolves, like where you want to go with stuff evolves, and I kind of felt like I was missing that like celebration of the breed itself. So a couple of years ago, I contacted Mary Jane from
Yep.
Battenkill, and really, she's about an hour north of me, so I could just drive up there, have a discussion with her, go to the mill,
Yeah.
um, and create my custom, spin what I wanted. And I wound up getting like a Corriedale merino blend from her, and I get it in like a very light gray, and I get it in a dark gray. And so I can dye the same color on both, and they'll be different colors. And I
Yeah.
really was like so interested in that. And I bought a lot from her because I was like, I'm gonna ruin some of this. So it's definitely like a learning curve, but I love like a good breed yarn. Like when I go shopping for wool, when I really want to buy something different, I want something different. I want something I can't make, you
Cool.
know? So but
Well,
yeah,
then
it's
I
definitely
was gonna say
different.
I'm excited then to get your impressions on the stuff that I sent
Yeah.
you because there's three, actually technically four different blends that I sent you. But
Yeah.
before we get on to that, because I know people are anxious to like see and talk about it, as am I want to I want you to talk a little bit about your aesthetic. So for me, no, really. So for me, right, when I've worked with, several indie dyers over time. I mean, plenty actually. And like you said, before people maybe diverge into other fiber blends, it is really everybody getting base yarn super wash from, what I think they say there's like three companies out there. So you're all getting the same
Mhm.
yarn, you're all working with the
Same
same
thing.
yarn. It's about your spin, right? Your
Right.
aesthetic you put on it. Obviously, I'm sure it took you some time to develop that. However, knowing your dress, and the no, I mean, but really your aesthetic
Yeah.
personally clearly transforms into your yarn. But I'm so I guess, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so my first question would be, like, did you start out that way? Like, how did you, like, is this always been your aesthetic and then you figured out how to put it on your yarn? Or like that, where did that process come in? And then if somebody asked you, like, how would you describe it? Because I know if you go on your website and the different things that you do and what you call different things, it's
Yeah.
clear. But I'm just curious about that evolution.
I mean, we're like right to the begin. Like I was like a goth high school student. Like surprise. I was like really like my nails were always black and like my outfits were always black and I had fishnet and I've been doing my eyeliner like this since I was 17 because that's how my grandma did her eyeliner. But like my grandma was kind of goth, she was a little like she was cool. But yeah, I always was like into dark colors and like metal and like whatever. Like, and you know, that's I just always just gravitate towards that. And it's not all about like what you wear, of course, but like just that general aesthetic. I always just really appreciated it. And um I find that like deep saturated colors just are like mysterious, and I don't know, like there's just something about them. Like I'm not like a baby pink. Don't let the wall behind me fool you, right? It's a little bit more brown than
Eileen
it looks.
Steinhauer, if she's still with us, she's dying because she's our baby pink person.
Sorry.
So, oh my God, no,
I
no,
can appreciate it.
I'm just throwing that in for fun. But I
Yeah.
mean, did you start out like out of the gate in order to find your voice? Did you experiment with different things, or did you just
Yeah.
automatically gravitate in that way?
I think like I experimented with like what I had, and Well, it wasn't too long before I was like, okay, like the way that I dye, like a bunch of different layers and all this stuff, like you kind of have to do that to get that what you
Depth.
want. Sometimes even with all that, you don't even get what you want. Sometimes it's just not working. But I, yeah, like I think layering colors and like going over things over and over again and you putting it in the pot and then putting it in the tray, it was kind of how I painted. So I think like I just did that because that's how I knew to get close to what I wanted.
Mhm.
And it was a safe way to get to where I wanted, like you just put a little bit and then I'm gonna put a little bit more and then I'll do a little bit more, you know, like and then it just became the way that I like to do it,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, I think and it's a lot of work. Like none of my colors ever go into the pot one time. I just can't. It's not right. To me, it's not right. Like, and I see other dyers do it and these beautiful colors and I can appreciate it. But when
Yeah.
I take it out of the pot in my house, I'm like, let's do some more. Like, I just want more and more, like, let's do more. So,
It makes me think of like when you watch those fashion shows, and don't get me wrong, I am not saying you need edit, but
no,
I love when they're like, this needs
this,
editing.
this needs to stop. That's absolutely something that, like, a lot of people go through like a fine arts degree and get to the end and they still don't know when it's done, right? It's like a thing.
Mhm.
It's a thing. Like, how do you know when you're done, right? I know when I'm done when I feel like it's me. Like when I can represent it and say, like, I did that, I'm proud of that. It looks like me, right? Like the same way with your fashion. And I am very much watching what's next in fashion right now. So like it kind of might be influencing how I'm talking about stuff, but like I can't get enough of a tan France. Like I love a tan France. Like if you guys know what I'm talking about.
I
But
don't know.
ah,
Wait, what are you talking? I'm sorry. Come on. I live on a
I know.
farm.
It's okay. It's okay. He's one of the guys in the Queer Eye lineup, you know,
Okay, sure. I
and
mean, I do
he's
know
a
that.
fashion guy, and I just really love that I just really love his personality, and I want to watch everything he does. But
Cool.
um,
All right. Well, other people know what you're talking about, so that's the
yeah,
good thing.
Tan France. I think I want Tan France to call me my love and just tell me that like he like loves what I'm wearing, and I think I could die happy. I want him to be like all black sweater, like innovative, like never like beautiful.
Well, hey, you know what? It probably is pretty innovative because how many people talk about how they hate to knit with black yarn, right? Because
I know, I
it's
know.
difficult. And I'm always like, of course, but I would be like, it's like calling the kettle black, but look, I get it. Like in other things that I do, I get it in the sense that you just have to put a contrast underneath you
Yes,
to try to help a little bit.
yeah,
Um, and I
and
get people are like, well, easy for you to say, but it's just so gorgeous though. And
yeah.
I will say this is a foreshadowing for everybody. And I really, again, I love how all of my guests, different things intertwine, and I'm laughing to myself because tomorrow night's pattern drop is actually using one of my jet black yarns because I know people cannot like appreciate it as much or envision it as much. And I handed it off to Crystal Hyatt of Factory Girl Designs, and I was like, "Girl, you got to rock this for me." So that's our
Girl,
pattern drop. And
we have
again,
to
not
do
that you
this.
have to do it with black, but she did it in
No,
jet black, so it's
I
cool.
mean, if you can get through like knitting with a dark color, it's so beautiful and so like I feel like to me, dark colors and like really deep jewel tones and stuff, they pop. Like I just feel like they pop. Like the way I think other people think hot pink pops,
Right. Sure.
right? I love like a nice, moody, saturated, mysterious, you know. I love stuff like that. I just think like, and I like to wear it. Not everybody likes to wear that.
Yeah.
Some people look great in like pinks and pastels and like beautiful like spring colors. I think part of the reason it's not me is because I never liked that stuff on me, you know, but when
And
I
here's the
see it on
thing
somebody else.
I've always said. I mean, one, I don't have the time to, but two, I'm never going to take the effort to be like, what's next? What's hot? What's happening? I
Right.
just do what I love. You do what you love. And then those
Yeah.
people will find you.
And
And
I
as
think
we
that,
started out before recording, we all can be everybody's taste. And
yeah,
that's okay because you
yeah,
have to love what you do. And if the next person vending next to you has a different aesthetic, that's the beautiful thing because then
yeah.
other people are going to, migrate towards them. So there's something for everybody. And I think what resonates, and honestly, what I'm really getting so much more of an appreciation for what you do is that it's your voice and people get genuine. People don't get or don't buy into because they feel when somebody is just doing something because they think you like it.
Well, and that's what I was going to say next. Like I have so much experimenting and like just seeing what happens. And I really find that when I dye a color or I do something that I think people will like, you know, and I just like, oh, I'm missing this color in the lineup. I should do this color just to get it in there. It doesn't sell. People know when it's genuine. People know when they come into the booth, like, I'm very particular about the way my booth looks. You know, not that that sounds
You,
so
you
like,
know who you're talking to, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But you know, like I'm very particular about my setup and how, like, I planogram because I worked at AC Moore for a million years. Like, and I hated planograms, but like, thank God I know how to do one because there, it has to be me, right? And when somebody walks in and they see a color that like it just really doesn't, it's just not part of it. You can tell when it's just not part of it. You know, like I want when people come to my online shop or when they come to my booth at a fiber festival that they walk in and they feel an experience and they feel a vibe. Like there's a vibe when you walk in there and like you can tell when something doesn't really belong there. And it's usually the thing that I made because I thought I needed
Hmm.
like this color, you know, like it's just that's not genuine, you know?
Hmm.
And so many times like at events I've seen like you know you're standing there and you're like oh, good morning or whatever and like so many times I've seen people walk by and they're like no and then I'm like okay it's not for you but then there are people that come in and they are like I had to come to this booth like this
Yeah.
is exactly how I feel. I
Yeah.
love that, you know,
Yeah.
but I can appreciate if somebody doesn't feel that way, you know, like
No, but there
I
are
get it.
some times where you're like, really, do you have to say that out loud?
It's okay. It's okay. You know, another thing that I think, like from going to school, you know, we used to have like critiques every Monday morning or every Sun or whatever, and like that you would just put your stuff up there, and then everybody else would tell you that it's awful and why, and like you should have done this and you should have done that. You develop like it's not personal, you
Yeah.
know, like I love an aesthetic that somebody else has. It's not for me but
Hmm.
I can appreciate so much it on somebody else or
Hmm.
like a design or something, you know, like, but not for me. And but
Right,
so that's
absolutely.
okay.
But at the same time, it's that appreciation and it's
Sure.
called respect, right?
Yes.
It's called
Yes.
respect for what everybody does about what makes them happy.
Right.
So, what I would love before people kill me, I want to then just sort of take the mediums that I have here, if we can, to talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
because so much of what you've said, like I keep looking, like
I
nobody knows
know.
what I'm looking at,
You
but
can cut me off.
they're all
Yeah.
sitting
'Cause
next to me.
I'll just keep, it'll be like 9:30 and I'll be like, oh, and then blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah.
No, no, I mean, but here's the thing. And even like last night, I mean, it just depends. And this is what and I asked you going into this, my guests know me, like, it's there's just a vibe, and there's so many different people that I'm like, I could easily have like part two. I could continue this because I am naturally curious myself. This is
Yeah.
not like, this is not fake. I'm not asking you questions to be like, and so like I
She
forget that
doesn't even care.
here, and I'm like, I want to know this and I want to know this, and that's why I love doing this. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I also am super excited. I mean, look, yes, I got to turn it on to the work that we've done because
Yeah.
we're also here, to
Yeah.
be able to, sing our praises a bit. What I want to start by saying, and thank God, because I forgot about it for a moment, and then it just came back to me. When you were talking about aesthetics, so one of the things that I've done over the years, and really even before like collabs became a thing, was to have the idea to take my yarn and either design a yarn that was going to represent somebody else's aesthetic, or hand it over to a dyer of which they would put their aesthetic on that. So it's interesting when I hear about, like, when you're an indie dyer, yeah, you need your vibe, you need cohesiveness, right?
Yeah.
That's like a fashion term. And for me, I took a little bit of like a left turn with that, because this is me. Like,
Yeah.
my colors are very muted. And at the same time, I'm a big proponent for naturals with a pop of color, and everybody knows that. And many times I started to look at my yarns and I'm like, where's my naturals? Because I do get, sorry everybody, I do get sucked into the vortex of natural doesn't sell. So then what I started to try to do was take a natural base and then add some color to it, so you can still see the nuances of the natural animal, the natural color,
Yeah.
and then, so that same kind of depth that I feel like you get with yours. So then with my American Life with whoever I'm working with, so this is American Life with Lambstrings yarns, I'm okay with walking into my booth and kind of seeing haphazardness, or, colors that you would not otherwise envision me to have. And I really actually I totally embrace that as well. So it's like my base with somebody else's speak, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's fun for me because, just like you said, it might not be my color, but it's my respect and appreciation for somebody else's voice. It's not me trying to bring in an audience that I don't already have. It's just
Right.
using that shared platform. With that said, though, your colors are me, so they don't not fit. The depth of the jewel tones, the soft earth tones. I mean, I feel like even the one yarn that is about as like spring as when I looked at it, I was like, this is like, can't wait till spring kind of thing. And
Yeah.
but it's still muted colors that, yeah, I don't know, I just love them, and I'm really not, it's the truth. It's just gorgeous. So yeah, so yours is not a far cry from stuff that I would wear personally.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious if we can, I'm going to kind of run through some things, because there's so many things you talked about. Like, I'm even just looking at the two bases where I'm assuming you did the same colors, but they took up the dye differently. So the greens and the reds that you did.
Yes.
So those were the same, right?
Yes.
Yes, but I'm gonna hold them up as the two colors with the two different bases for people to be able to see the difference of how it took up. So,
Yeah.
in a sense, everybody, what I did, which, because honestly, Shanna's great. I've worked with other dyers, and sometimes there's hesitancy, or, and she was like, the more diversity, the better.
I'm like, just send me whatever. I want to play, even though this is serious.
I'm like, that's
I
what
want to
we
play.
did. So I did send her some of our sport weight yarn. So you guys know, or at least those of you that have been with me, I have gone back to many of my farmers that I shear for. They have made their own yarns. My hand is in it, just to get some different things. And even exactly like Shanna was saying, get some different wool blends, some different characters, some different textures, to introduce you guys also to different things as well. Embrace something other than, right, alpaca and
Yep.
wool. So So I have
Celebrate the breed. Like I'm really like
yeah,
into that. Like celebrate the breed, you know? It's so
exactly.
cool.
And find a purpose for it. Even if it doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily work well against your skin, it's great for something else.
right.
So I had the Valet's Black Nose Merino blend in sport weight that I sent Shanna. Definitely a little bit more of a rustic yarn,
Yeah.
although the merino blended in is kind of an interesting combo. And that was more of like an ecru base. So it's, you know, it had kind of a cream to it. And then I also center my traditional white picket fence in fingering. So that's my traditional 400 yard, you know, alpaca merino silk blend. So she gave me two colors with both of those yarns that are duplicate. So it'll be interesting to see the difference between them in case if anybody happens to be clamoring. You know, again, these are all small bases. I mean, I think we're talking 8 skeins in each of the colors, if my memory serves me correct. And I just love how the colors took up differently. So now I also want to apologize. Shanna did send me yarn names after the fact.
Oh,
No, but I mean, and honestly, I hate naming yarns. And your names were so much cooler than mine, but we were on crunch time because Jill's
yeah, and that's fine.
vacation time. So the funny thing is one
But
of
we
them,
had the same idea.
we had the same idea for
Yeah.
the other blends. For this
Yeah.
blend, guys, I went kind of cheesy because I have a million, like, you know, barn red and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a very rustic red. But I did go with a Christmas theme. So you guys better get this so that I'm not still carrying this in the spring looking like a damn idiot with Christmas
Yeah, I
theme.
did do like some Christmas. I did a Christmas colors.
So I want to start with the one because honestly, it is a very rustic red.
Yeah.
And because I was going with a Christmas theme, we were trying to think of like old fashioned Christmas. So we kind of, you know, came up with the idea of like St. Nicholas and the old pictures of Christmas. And so that's where we kind of came up with the name. So this like really rustic red, we did decide to call St. Nicholas. Now I'm going to hold it back
Perfect.
because if I hold it too close, just the same as taking pictures, which do not judge me on my pictures on the website because I was rushing, but it's really hard because if the light hits it too much, it makes it look brighter than it is, and the colors are super deep. But
Yeah.
what's really cool is you can see how much deeper it is. This is the Sport Weight Valet's Black Nose Merino blend. And then this is the fingering weight white picket fence, so alpaca merino silk. My guess would be that it's the silk in here that brightened it a bit versus this, but I don't know if you can recall or talk to about how the dyes take up or work differently.
So I will say that that white picket fence, it's got a texture to it. It's got like a kink.
Mm-hmm.
I say I use the word kinky so much, and people are like, I'm like, no, like for fiber. Um, but it has like there's a kink in it, right? So when I was dyeing it, it like it was some of the. It's very weird. It's like the way that the yarn curls. It doesn't the way that I twist my yarn when I put it in and it doesn't reach everything in there. Well, I was talking about that before, is the
Mm-hmm.
way that that like kink takes the yarn, takes the dye. And I noticed that the last time when you had given me, because I think you'd given me the white picket fence
That's
at the last
usually,
collab.
yeah, that's usually
Yeah.
what I use. So this has been a change up.
Yeah, and I think with those I did I did a couple of colors. With this one I wanted to just do like a straightforward
Right.
color, but and I dyed them the exact same way. The recipe is exactly the same. I think that went through twice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just like those kink, like that curl in it would like miss a little bit of the saturation from here, but it would get it. So it kind of came out like it's brighter. And then the other one just ate that dye right up. Like yum yum yum. Like it just took it right in and I was like, well, okay, that was like so quick. Like really was like
Interesting.
yummy, yummy. Yeah, so
Now,
interesting.
do you have other yarns that you work with that utilize silk? Because again, I do know the silk being a plant fiber versus the other two animal fibers. I mean, I know that changes things, so I'm curious if that was part of it.
So I have. used silk before. Um, but again, it's coming from that yarn supplier, right? So
Right.
it's a lot of superwash, maybe like 10% silk and whatnot. And I've had it in the past, and there's like a sheen that's on it that
Hmm.
is not my favorite, from like my supplier, right? I
Okay.
don't know, like it didn't get that sheen from yours. It's like a, and no, you know, people love it. And like people, the way people love like glitter yarn,
Hmm.
right? So not
Yeah,
really a big, huge
personal,
glitter for me.
personal taste, right?
Yeah. So I stopped buying it. I think I was using it like very early when I started the business, like when it wasn't a full-time business yet. And then I kind of just weaned out of it. I just like the way that the like a wool takes the dye, and like there was like, yeah, like that gloss on it
And
that
I
wasn't,
appreciate Stephanie
yeah.
correcting me
Yeah,
in terms
plant
of
fiber.
oats being considered, a protein. But the only thing I will say then in my defense is I know in talking with other people that it definitely takes up the dye
It it
differently
definitely does. It
the wool
definitely does.
than the alpaca. And because that silk presents so much luster to the yarn, that I
Luster, that's the
wondered
word.
if that was, the difference, between
Yeah,
them. So then
yeah.
these are the counterparts, right? So again, the same sport weight Valets merino blend, and then this is white picket fence. So we call these Noel, trying to stick with, I've
Perfect.
had a million Adirondack
Perfect.
evergreen, so sticking with the Christmas theme, we named these Noel, but again, you guys can see the difference in the depth of
Mhm.
color between the two. Obviously, the feel of the yarn is different because we're talking about different breeds and different blends, for sure. But also the richness, you can definitely, see the difference as well. So,
I thought that sport weight was so interesting. Like I was
oh,
just like, and um, and this is like really not, I don't know what the length of the hank was
oh.
different.
So
So
it's
the
funny
hank,
because I hate it. What did you like about it though? And I'll say why I hate it, but
so I do think that the length of the hank had a lot to do with how much dye was being absorbed. I think
okay.
with the white picket fence, it's shorter and
Yep.
fatter. So there's a lot of yarn
Okay.
that the dye needs to get through.
Hmm.
So like I did notice that, but I like to dye with a nice long hank because I feel like it can get really even and perfect, you know. Um, but then when I want to hank something, I want it shorter. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
for dyeing
Well,
purposes,
yeah,
I have a nice
exactly.
long
And
hank.
look, the only reason why I hate it is because of my display put up, right?
I get it.
How I hang my yarns.
I
So my
get it.
traditional, my mill, and this is what I've learned moving forward, which is now going to start to become a challenge. Different mills will put up their skeins in different yardage. So
Yes.
this is 1.5 yard put up, and this is a 2 yard put up. Now, on top of that, this is fingering, it's 400 yards. This is
Right.
sport, which is more like DK, and it's 200 yards. So there's that also in terms of the
Yeah.
amount of fibers you were saying to go in and out of.
Yeah.
But I merely just hate it for the put up. It just doesn't
But
work in my display, and
I
I'm
get it.
not about to build a whole new display. But you're definitely going to be seeing more of these because now my work with Mary Jean Parker, her
Yes.
yarns are in the 2 yard put ups as well. So, and
Well,
Lisa was commenting, I didn't know if Lisa's phone was Lisa Westerfeld, which now I do. So Lisa, you had a different variation, but yes, you had dyed the Valley's Black Nose for me using the natural dyes. And this is a different batch. So I will say this actually has a little bit of a different texture, but the same base utilizing the Valley's Black Nose. So
yeah,
these are those two. So to see them together, right? Oh, so
they
rich,
look nice.
so rich. So these are the two sport weights in the Valley's Black Nose, and then these are the two in the fingering. So whether or not they live together, don't live together, I will just give a shout for any new people, just to let you guys know, because I'm so excited to even move through the rest of these. So we have 3 more to show you. But also for anybody who's new, just keep in mind if there is any pattern support, if you're interested in these yarns and you see our patterns, patterns always come free with the appropriate purchase of yarn. So in a way, I kind of purposely wore this. This is our classic Hampton wrap, which actually has a totally different appearance when it's opened and draped over my shoulders, kind of like an infinity wrap. But at the
Mm.
same time, you can double it up and wear it as a nice squishy cowl. And this was just kind of my last minute, wanted to throw it on. We have this both in fingering weight and sport weight, so actually would go well with any of the yarns here. I will say tomorrow night's pattern drop is with fingering weight, but you're gonna have to wait to get that info.
Fingering weight black yarn. It's a good challenge.
It
I would
is,
love
it is,
that. But I
it is.
totally get like as soon as the sun goes down, I'm like, huh?
That's when you need to bring out that light, right?
Time for a different project. Yeah.
I want to jump to this one because the other 2 are a matched pair,
Yeah.
but I'm going to show this one first. So now we're jumping onto a totally different blend. For any of you that were with us on New Year's Eve and we had our chat with Linda Courtwright from Wild Fibers, we alluded to the fact that I've been also resourcing yarn from her, and she spent a great deal of time talking about, and will even more so in the lecture series, about how special the particular Falkland wool is that she works with in terms of the micron count at 18.5, in terms of the fact that it's known for the most brilliant white yarn I've seen to date, and also for the fact that it's also labeled as organic. So I have 2 different blends. And so I sent 16 skeins to Shanna with the 100% Falkland wool blend versus the other that we're going to look at is the wool silk blend. So there's 16 of these. And I'm really curious. So first of all, you have to talk about the difference in dyeing this one versus the other 2 that are a bit more saturated. And I'm also going to be curious to get your impressions. So this is fingering weight, but also this yarn has a lot more yardage than mine. And it is a bit finer than my traditional fingering weight. So it's actually 437 yards. Now, we had kind of the same idea, but we decided to call this Spring Horizon because, as I said, when I saw it, it just made me think of spring. Kind of like spring's almost here, spring is coming, wait for it.
Where is it?
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
go.
We're barely into winter, and I'm already like, where's spring?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
it's
been
time.
mild. So this is Spring Horizon. And so talk to us a little bit about the process for achieving this, because again, there's color, there's purple, but it's
Yeah.
beautiful, what I would consider beautiful earth tones.
Yeah, that one. So that one got like, first of all, that base and the other 2 or the other base that I had gotten, I was like, am I gonna keep one? But I didn't. I was good, but I was like, maybe I just keep one. And then I just say, oops. Um, I love that base. I thought that base was so nice. It it took the way that like cashmere takes dye, which is just a little muted, like just a little muted, just a little under muted for what my intention was, right?
And it's
But
interesting,
I
I'll
love it.
interject because Linda was originally a cashmere breeder. And then one
Yeah,
of the things that she taught me about this yarn is that it's actually even a lower micron count than the recognized number for cashmere.
interesting.
Yeah.
I really felt like that was similar to when I dye like a cashmere blend,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like the idea was to like punch up like that greenish
Mm-hmm.
like yellow, and it just I came out and I was like, okay. And then so I immersed that with a twist, and then I put it in the tray and I dyed over it. And
Okay.
that lavender, I don't even remember. I have it written down, of course, but I can't remember what that lavender was. I think I mixed some dye to pour over, and that lavender like came out. Like just the way that it took. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, but in the same way that like a cashmere would take it, like it just, what's the word? I don't want to use the word muted because it sounds Bleh. It's like a nice word for muted.
Well, I don't, well, that's where
Yeah.
I guess I call them like earth tones. You know,
Yeah, it gets like
that's
earthy. Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, that's how I call it because to me that's what this is. And I understand what you're saying. It's sort of like the difference between like a matte finish and a glossy finish, maybe,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. Like, yes. When you go to the store and it's right there. Yes. It's like, it's the same color, but it's just finishes differently or it like, yeah. Yeah, it
So
was
I'm
really,
curious, and you can say yes or no. I mean, in terms of the colorways that you created with my yarns, are they ones that you've done before? Are
yeah.
these unique colorways? So you were just like, I'm going for it.
Yeah, I was subdued. That's the word.
Yes.
Um, somebody said subdued. But no, when I do like stuff like this, I don't, it's new.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
and I
it's
couldn't care
definitely
either
new.
way, but I was just curious. Now, at
Yeah.
the same time, because here's what's going to happen. Let's just say, and I'm curious to the answer, even though you have all the recipes, right? Like these are small batches. Like we already said, there was 8 skeins of this. You know, there's 8 skeins of each of the greens and the reds. There was 16 skeins of this. There's only 8 skeins of the other two I'm about to show you. So if all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, they were so gorgeous based on like recipes that you write down are and just the real answer, are these duplicable or is
Yeah.
it always like, look, it's always going to be a little different, or obviously the base has to stay the same? Like how does that
Yeah.
work? Not to railroad you into anything, I'm just
No,
curious.
no. Um, I think it depends on what people consider the same. Like anytime you're doing any sort of hand-dyed yarn or speckling or anything, they're going to be different. But the yarn is going to knit in a different pattern, and that's why it's always so important that you alternate skeins and blah blah blah. But they're the same, like that
I always
amount of dye that
say
I
in the wash,
used,
it all
that's
comes
the
out the
same.
same in the wash.
Right. Right. But like the amount of speckle, I know I used you know, 1/64th of a tablespoon of persimmon dye, right? Like I know I use that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I like they're the same quantities and the same mixtures. The skeins are obviously going to be a little different than one another, but not in the way of color, right?
Gotcha.
Um, it's going to look different on a different base,
Yeah,
definitely,
for
you know.
sure.
I mean, I think like once you start adding other animal fibers, it becomes very different. Like nylon, nah, it's not really going to do much. But once you start like adding like silks and alpaca and cashmere through, like now it starts to get they look a little different. Let me see. Um, what's a good example that you can actually see?
In the meanwhile, I'm going to tease you guys.
I don't even think that I have like I'm gonna say, oh, you know what? I yeah, I don't know if you're gonna be able to like really. No, these look the same. In real life, they don't look the same.
So those are two different bases. You're
Slight variations.
saying,
Yeah, yeah. They're two different bases. So like one of
and
them has the cashmere in it.
that's some of the stuff that you just really, some of the depth was just to your credit. You have to be able to see it up
You have
close
to be able to see it. Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
I there's it's never gonna look the way it looks on a blurry,
No,
outdated
and
Android.
I was just curious. So now this last two pairing, what I loved is we both had the exact same idea for
Well,
it.
okay, because we're both very Long Island. I mean, you're wearing something called the Hampton shawl. Like as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah.
Of course it is.
I mean, yeah.
And I've done other ones like this, and it was funny because when I saw these two yarns, you know, one is a solid color, you know, one is a what would you call, is a speckled? Do you call it a speckled yarn?
I just
I
tackle
don't
like a
like
variegated. Yeah.
variegated. I like that
Yeah.
better because I'm not a big fan of like speckled.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so these are, and I'm gonna hold them up, but then I'll hold them individually because honestly, they're just so stunning together. So the solid, if you will, we called this one Peconic Bay because, of course, I immediately
Yeah.
started Googling waterways related to Long Island,
Of
and
course.
a little different because with this one, there's brown tones in it, which I love, and it's very,
Yeah.
very earthy. So I was like looking at rivers, because rivers make me think a little bit more like than ocean and blues. And I had
Yes.
done
Yeah.
Montauk before, which I loved. Her name for this was Meet Me in Montauk, which is so damn cute.
Yeah.
And we had a Montauk before, but same idea. So this one, because it's actually right near where I am, we called this one Forge River. So just to do them separately, and again, the depth on this, it's just a really deep, beautiful, almost like teal blue. Like
Yeah.
it's, I mean, just gorgeous. And again, some of these colors are so hard to capture because, especially when you're photographing, if you get too close, it, of course, because I'm only using my camera, like it changes and it wants to make it brighter. So I tend to take my
Yeah.
pictures from far away and then I'll crop them to be able
And
to
I zoom in.
that color. So
Yeah.
this is the Peconic Bay. Now the other slight difference, although I don't know, it would be interesting to see if we had the same recipe. So remember, this one is 100% of the Falkland wool.
That one
This
was so, I
one
love it.
this one is a blend of the Falkland wool. I don't necessarily know the percentage, but this has silk in it. And you can, and when they're by themselves in all of their nakedness, I can look at the two and see the difference
Yeah.
because that silk is going to add that
Yes.
sheen, that luster, and it's just ever so slightly feels different, almost like a little slippery
Well,
because of
we are
this.
trained professionals. If I, when
Try
I've
this
shown
at
Seth,
home, folks.
I've shown Seth like two, and I'm like I'll get samples, and I'm like, which one do you like better? And like I'll show him, and he's like, what are we talking about? Those are the things. Like,
It's like it
get
looks
out
the
of here
same
with
to
that.
me. So that, again, you're going to get just a little bit more of a sheen from these two particular yarns. And then, so again, up close to try to, there we go.
Yeah.
So you can really see the blues, the browns. There's even like kind of some muted greens. It's just gorgeous. Oh, I try not look. I really, really do love them. I really, really do love them all. I do. And I want to say, what I forgot to say as I'm looking back at Noel. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but on the fingering, not so much in the St. Nicholas, but in the fingering on the Noel, there is depth to this that I couldn't capture in a picture. And that was the other thing. And I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but it's still super cool. When you look at it in daylight, I can see the green, but then I see blue.
Yeah. And I think that's the way like the dye breaks when I do
Yeah.
immersion. Yeah. It's like, so
But
the
it's
goal
it's
when you're
super cool,
doing,
but you can't, like, it's so hard to see, but in
yeah,
maybe some of the darker spots, but it really is there when you see this in person, and especially in daylight, you can pick up the different nuances in this one in particular. So
I just think that's fun. Like when you're dyeing like a solid color, you put the dye in a separate container and you put hot water in that and you really mix it to break up all the little dye spots and then you pour it in the thing in the pot and then you put your yarn in or the other way around, however you like to do it. But sometimes the dye doesn't dissolve all the way when you're doing that.
okay,
And and it'll break like while it's dying in there, it starts to break. And it
okay,
just releases like these other colors that the company uses to make that color. So
really,
like it's just, and I know like a lot of people don't really like that. Like a lot of people are very adamant that their dye dissolves all the way, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, it's okay. Like I
so
like
when it
having that
breaks,
little
does it break
nuance.
because of the heat
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, the way it was just like dissolve in hot water. So I put like my recipe calls for, a quarter of a tablespoon, and then I put hot water on it and I whisk it. because it's a kitchen thing. You whisk it. And sometimes I think the dye is done all the way, but sometimes there's just other little particles of pop of color that come out when you're mixing it in a giant pot because it
Mhm.
has more room to dissolve and to get around, and it just comes out and it gives like those tiny little, like you said, those little nuances. Like there's a
Mhm.
little bit of blue or there's a little bit of this. I love that. And there's certain dyes that do that more than others.
Mhm.
So it's I love the way that stuff looks. I
No,
love
I
when it's like kind of cool, yeah.
no, and again, at the same time too, I guess to some degree, you also have to embrace it, or you move on to something else, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Or you
if
figure
you,
out a different way to do it. My process is probably different than a lot of other people's processes. Like I know when I go on Instagram and I see a dyer that I'm like, oh, that's just gorgeous, and I'm like, it's really like like going way back to see if maybe they posted something like in the tray or like a process photo that I'm like, like it's just so interesting. But you just gotta play. You just
yeah.
gotta play with it.
No, I think it's amazing. I need to do a couple of things before I mean, and truly, I I could go on and on and on. So please, know that for sure. I want to make sure because I'm totally remiss that I should have at the beginning. Now, kudos to you. I mean, maybe we've lost people, gained people, but we've held at about 40. I mean, it says 43, 44, but two of them are us and the moderator. So, I mean, we've held at about 40, throughout the entire thing. So I don't think we've lost too many people. So I have been trying to watch the chat, but Erin, nod your head. Did you at all drop in Shanna's gift to everybody? Okay, Shanna, can I please ask you to let everyone know? Because again, you're probably our first person that has something to offer the guests as well
Oh
as
yeah.
I do. And Erin will drop it in the chat. But do you have it in front of you to be able to share what you'd like to offer everybody, or do you need us to?
No, I have it.
Great.
Yeah, so for the viewers, if you'd like to take advantage, I have a 10% discount code on the website right now up until Sunday night. I'm going to run it through the whole weekend. So the code is New Year 10, and you just drop that in the checkout for a discount, 10% off on all of my ready to ship skeins. So it's not going to include any pre-orders or any subscriptions or anything like that. But my ready to ship skeins are all yours, 10% off. New Year 10.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And that's going to be
So
through Sunday evening, correct?
through Sunday evening. Yep. So you have all weekend.
Excellent.
Um, so you have a lot of time to make decisions, you know, make some decisions.
Well, and I appreciate that. So thank you for offering
And it's
that.
all here. So there's tons of it. So much of it. Like I'm really gonna try not to show you like I'm very like I've curated this so that it doesn't show any of the mess. Like, so don't judge if you see
Mess
something.
is good. Mess is good. Mess
Yeah.
means we're busy and we're working. So,
I know. I was like,
um,
what? I was thinking earlier, I was like, what if I drop the phone like accidentally and they see what this room really looks like?
honestly,
Like,
it's funny.
no.
I think maybe 2 years ago when I first started this, and one of my friends, who's a shepherdess, but she's a weaver, she had done the profile or the perspective where you
Yeah.
blur out the back. And we were like, no, like not even we, the guests were like, no, we want to see the mess. Like, this is real life. We want to see the mess. I just happen to be out here because if I'm inside, that means there's dogs, pigs, husband, like uncontrollable chaos of which,
Babies.
I
I was
know.
really,
Yeah,
really
well,
hoping that my cat was going to come visit, and she does not give a shit. She's like, no, thank you. I only come in this room to throw up on the rug, but that's great. Like, that's fine.
I'm only laughing. And of course, now I'm going to say this. So one of the reasons why I was late was because, yes, one of my pigs decided they were also going to be spitting up right beforehand. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I don't need this right now. I'm like,
And he's like, you're welcome. That's a gift. This is a gift to you.
like voice texting.
Just this
I'm gonna
morning.
be late. I'm like, I'm trying to get ready. The pigs are throwing up.
Just
So
this morning. So we have a
welcome
guest
to my
room.
life.
Yeah, I mean, we have we've only been in this house for about 4 years, and I finally have a guest room, like an actual guest room with its own design and everything. I'm really proud. But it's like nobody, I mean, nobody, not nobody, but like it's very rare that we have guests, right? Because we're just far enough away that nobody can like come up here whenever they want. And so it's Sadie's room. I have a mini Australian Shepherd who does not herd. She like is an indoor, like she wants the AC. She's very spoiled. But that's her room because it's quiet in there. It gets the AC and the heat first from the furnace, and she can look out the window and whatever. So this morning, I was like, she's like hanging out with me, which is not like her. So I went to the bathroom, which is right next to the guest room. And as I'm passing the guest room, I'm like, huh, that smell is not good. And I look over and she like unleashed disgusting fury onto my
Oh,
beautiful new comfy guest blanket. And I was like, huh. So I lift it. Yeah, it went all the way through. Like there's like two blankets on that bed, there's sheets. I mean, really getting disgusting, but like this is what it's like. I was like, no, I'm peeling off all these layers.
and I would not have mentioned anything until you mentioned it. I'm like, all right, I got to tell you, I
Whatever.
sympathize. So don't
It's
worry.
what it is. And she's just like, I did that. So
I know, right?
you're gonna
They
have to
just
feed
they
me
have their
again.
uncanny timing. Uncanny
On
timing. Well, listen, do me a favor too, and then
that note,
I'm gonna, of course, like do my wrap up stuff. But pick me a number. From again, we've got 44, so that means there's 41 of us. So in terms of that, pick me a number from 1 to 41, and I'm gonna scroll down and see who's gonna get that $20 store credit.
this is the pressure. Uh, 23.
All right. So of course that's right in the middle. So I can't go up or
Sorry.
down. No, don't be
I
silly,
mean,
but everyone
come
knows
on.
it's kind of the joke because like it's legit. Like I'm literally scrolling
Yeah.
through. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold. And then we've got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Would you say 23? 19,
23.
20, 21, 22, and 23. So this is somebody I don't know. So maybe you are new, perhaps. It's a capital M and then Nord. So capital M, capital Nord. Maybe that's somebody's first initial and your last name. But if that is you, if you could go ahead and be sure to drop your first and last name along with your email address into the chat so that way Erin can capture that for me, and then we can be sure to reach out to you to give you your $20 store credit to Shop with Life. I will say, because it's somebody I'm not familiar with, I hope you're here. Well, you're here. You're clearly here. I hope you'll let us know because it's great to involve new people. And so far, not even intentional, it has been somebody different every night, which I think if we landed on the same person, I would probably alternate that anyway. So good. I see. Oh my, thanks. Well, great. Well, let us know who you are, and
Good.
uh, and thank you for that. Erin, I'm gonna go ahead. Go ahead, Erin. What's up?
Okay, someone earlier asked they would like you to hold out your Hampton wrap and show it so they could see it.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. I did have that thought that I was going to be undressing and re-zhuzhing, and I totally
I
forgot all about
mean,
that. So thank you. Well, not totally
it's late,
undressing.
so it's time. And things can get kinky, not yarn related.
So this is actually the fingering weight version. So it takes a little bit to zhuzh, but the whole point of this particular piece from eons of years ago, of which, so you can see the tag is on there. Sorry, guys. Of which this is one of our workhorses. So much so that we started in fingering weight and then we moved to do it in a sport weight also. Let me just start fresh here. But this was a piece that I had bought from like one of my favorite stores. And then, of course, I started a yarn company. And then you cannot wear anything that is a knit that is not yours, right? So then I'm like, all right, we need to duplicate this. So what I liked about it is it's meant to be like a shawl. It's probably grabbing on my sweater. So without somebody else here to judge me, the back is not going to look proper, but it's like a shawl that you don't have to worry about, meaning it just sits on your shoulders. It's knit straight. It is not knit in the round. So the thing I like about it is as you're knitting, you can gauge the size of it. I like it long enough so I can double it up as a cowl, but if you're shorter, then obviously you're not going to want, this part to necessarily hang down as much. So it's kind of like an infinity, but it's very wide. So it is really meant to be, like I said, it's like a shawl, but it's connected. You're going to either mattress stitch to seam it, or you could do a provisional cast on. And again, the back is, you can kind of see it. It's not pulled down as much as it should be, just because it's snagging on my sweater. So this is the fingering weight version. It does take 2 skeins of our fingering weight, so that's a total of 800 yards. Or it takes 3 skeins of our sport weight, so that's 600 yards. And I will say it works well in both a solid or a variegated because it's a super, super simple basket weave. And it's actually also done on a large needle so that it is meant to be open. So it's really a piece that you could pretty much wear 4 seasons because as you see, I've got it layered up right now, or you can double it up as a cowl. It'll also then pull up. So it's kind of like a
love
hat
that.
because you can pull
I love
half
that.
of it up as like a hood and have the other half around your neck. But yet at the same time, we launched this piece during the summer, during the Hampton Classic Horse Show, which is why it's called the Classic Hampton Wrap. So it's also perfect over like a summer dress, when you just don't want your bare shoulders and you want something on it, but you don't want to have to like walk like this all the time so that your shawl, doesn't fall off. So
I
that's
love like I love a shawl that you can just
yeah, nice and
that you
cozy.
I call it like I babushka. Like you can just like babushka and like if it that misty rain, it protects from that. Like I love that.
One of our Becky with the good hair is a great picture of us with she's got hers and that she did that. It was wrapped around her neck and then she just pulled the part of it up
I
over
love it.
over her head. So just a super super simple knit, guys. That is just totally functional, purposeful. And again, I wore it tonight because really, if you saw me screaming into home base trying to get ready for this evening, but at the same time, I knew that it would also be great with the yarns that we've got here from Shanna. So I do want to say thank you to everybody. I mean, look, I know Erin has been dropping into the chat, all the different things that we've got going on as far as our codes for the skincare and all the ways to participate. These yarns are up on the site. They are super small batch, but you guys have the sneak peek. I mean, the pictures are up there, but at the same time, you've had a chance to see them in person. So I am excited to see what people like. I will say, as far as foreshadowing, tomorrow night's pattern again, I believe the yarn that I sent her were only 200 yard skeins. So we would essentially be talking 1 skein of fingering weight or a total of 400 yards. It does, I think, I don't even know, guys. I haven't seen it. I believe it might involve some cables. Maybe it doesn't, because I think she started with cables and then I think she decided not. I guess my point is, I think it'll still work with either a solid or a variegated in case you are thinking ahead. And at the same time, if you snag something this evening and then you see tomorrow night's pattern and you purchased appropriate yarn, we'll always circle back and gift you whatever it is that you like. So Shanna, before we wrap up, because again, like just so I really want to say this, and it's totally genuine and true from my heart. I have so much more of an appreciation for your dyeing process and your background and the thought that you put into it. And I really mean that. So I know you did one other batch for me before, and I really appreciated, every yarn that came back to me was, beautifully represented. It was easy to work with. I know when you get my yarns, oftentimes you have to undo them because of the ties. but they come back, you know, in a way that's easy to work with. The colors are my jam, but I love all colors and all appreciations. It's interesting to see the different inspirations that you have on the different yarns that I sent you. You know, no two are alike in that sense. So of course I could go on and on asking about, you know, where you get your ideas from, but for the sake of all of us, I'll wrap it up. But I really love, this is why I do this, everybody. You know, even if you knew Shanna and you knew her yarns, I am sure there's something that you've learned this evening to just gain an even better appreciation for, you know, her process, who she is as a person. And I've really thoroughly enjoyed this.
Oh, thank you. This was, I love stuff like, I love this. I love this. I love being able to share, like, you know,
Well, is
what I
there
do every
anything,
day, my little tiny business that I do every day, and being a part of the community and talking to people who know and want to know about this. I just,
yeah.
it's so special. It's
Well,
so
I will
special. So
certainly
thank you
share
for
with you
having me.
any feedback, but I know people were thoroughly interested. And again, it gives everybody a different appreciation, a different perspective of what goes into our yarn. So
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. Am I going to see you at Vogue?
Uh, I completely forgot about it until you had mentioned it. Like a couple, you were like, "Oh, Vogue in January, 2 weeks." I was like, "Oh shit, that's correct." I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I hope so.
All right. Well, keep me
Yeah,
posted. Of course, I'd love to
yeah,
see you. So,
yeah.
again, thank you so much for jumping in on this and being a part of our third annual 12 Days of Christmas. And I will
Thank
keep you
you.
posted on all the feedback I know I'm going to get. So,
Great.
all right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see everybody tomorrow night.